Camera's here. Do different things for different districts. You know, reality. What works in your district don't necessarily work. For instance, the highway bridge, you look at that district.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's County Council meeting. We will start with our invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. Our minister tonight is from Family Fellowship Church, and that's Minister Josh Vandergraaf. Josh, welcome to the council. I'd ask you all to stand and remove your caps.
Father, we're so thankful tonight, God, for this nation that we live in, and God, this county that we call home. We're thankful, Father, for the freedom for our voices to be heard and matters to be discussed. I pray, God, that you give these council members wisdom and guidance tonight and understanding, Father. I pray, Lord, that you touch the hearts and the minds, God, for all who are present tonight, those who will be speaking for or against things they passionately believe in. Father, we ask that you just give us all love in our hearts and peace in our minds as we endeavor, God, to come together one more time as a county, God, as a group of people. And we just ask this in your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Our Pledge of Allegiance is led by Councilman Dave Hammond.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Klinghammer.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here.
First item tonight is a public hearing on traffic regulations. This is to establish a four-way stop at the intersection of St. Andrews Drive and Sawyer Boulevard. Do we have anyone to speak on that issue tonight? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing on traffic regulations. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. That one right there in the middle would be great.
This one? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Mary Bryan, and I'm on the board at St. Andrews. And I did not know anybody had to speak tonight, so that's why. But anyway, we have had so many near misses at this intersection, and it's kind of the hill is coming up on Sawyer and coming around a curve here, and then trying to get across that is like trying to run through, and there have been a lot of people that have been near misses, So, and then we get people that disregard the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, which only maximizes the dangers of this intersection. So we feel that that it's only right that we try to protect some of our people because we're in the villas, and there are several people that are older, and I guess reflexes are not as good as they could be, but anyway, it's really a dangerous intersection, and you get speeders in the morning that are late for work, and they don't. If they see anybody there, they just kind of speed up. So I really believe that it's to the best interest of our community that we have a four-way stop.
Very well.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else to speak on this? Yes, sir.
I would just like to expand a little bit on what she said in the description of the area, that the hills and the turns are all there like she said, but the architectural layout and the foliage and the plantings and so on are there is what's causing the obstructions to where you can't see till the car coming is on top of you. You come up, you naturally stop, but when the other ones come up, they don't. They have a straightaway to go right on through. So you start across the intersection, and then you see them as they come around the foliage. So the biggest key there is the foliage in that particular area at that intersection and the hills. where you can't see them until they're right on top of you.
Very well.
Okay?
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. You got the floodgates opening, see? It's good that you stepped up. I was about to close this.
My name is Jack Mudd, and I live at that intersection. My house backs up to Sawyer, and the side of my house is on St. Andrews. I would estimate, I've lived there 9 years, and I would estimate there's a couple accidents a year, and many, many near misses with squealing tires and horns honking and everything. And one of these days, I'm fearful that one of those cars is going to come down into my house. And as they expounded also, the speeders are a problem also.
Very well. Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak on this subject?
Mike, if I could add just real quick.
Yes, sir.
I asked this one to be brought forward kind of off cycle because I went out, I've sat there on a couple different occasions after listening to the homeowners. It's warranted and needed. As the speakers have already said, the topography of the ground doesn't lay out well. And as the gentleman just mentioned, the trees and shrubs contribute to that problem as well. So I think it'd be well served by a four-way intersection.
Very well. Anyone else to speak on this subject? Last call. All right, we will close this hearing on traffic regulations. Thank you very much for those who spoke. Moving on to public comments. As I said earlier, normally on public comments, we do one subject at a time. We do opposing and for, and we rotate those back and forth. Carol, our first speaker tonight is?
And this is on Bill 4494. We have 4 speakers, and we have, the first one is Kathy Walsh.
We moved into our new home last year and looked forward to a peaceful retirement in the country. But now we are terrified at the prospect of 30 wedding receptions a year. Our anxiety is based on past experience. During a reception last year at Valley Farms, the noise became unbearable, not only because of the intensity, but also the duration. I cannot imagine having to endure this level of noise 30 times a year for the rest of my life. But frankly, I don't want to be standing here because the last thing I want is a hostile relationship with my next-door neighbors, the owners of Valley Farms. If noise weren't an issue, we wouldn't care what goes on at Valley Farms, but I'm standing here before you tonight because I want peace and quiet at my home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Tammy Berry.
Tammy? I should point out, just for those of you who don't know, during public comments, the council will not respond to you. This is your time to speak. You have 3 minutes in which to speak. When the timer goes off, I'll cut you off. So just wanted to let you know. Okay. Sometimes people look to us to have a conversation, and that's not what this is for. This is your time, so 3 minutes are yours.
So I'm Tammy Berry. My husband Ed and I own Valley Farms. And I wanted to address where we are today by taking a quick look back, because we have been at this farm for 14 years, and we first fell in love with it when we first saw it in 2003. We raised our children there. It's been a very wholesome agricultural life for us. They helped us build a business, and it took a lot of sweat, hard work, long hours, and love. Not only has it been a great place to raise a family and install a work ethic, Ed has sacrificed so much to get it off the ground. So I feel compelled that we need to share just a little bit of it as to why this current conditional use permit is so near and dear to us. 13 of those 14 years, Ed had to work in corporate America, and he was out of town a majority of the time. And so that meant that a lot of the stuff that needed to get done for the farm couldn't happen under the proper conditions. So if you can't spray for bugs at the right time because you're out of town, it can prove devastating for a farmer. We've also endured floods, and we've endured times that it was so dry that every varmint in the neighborhood chewed on our pumpkins for the moisture, and thus rendered them unsellable. But none of it deterred us. We just learned from it, and we grew. In 14 years of learning and growing, we want to continue to be able to do so. Our property is quite beautiful. It's been appreciated by neighbors and families visiting us for years. I think everyone who comes enjoys it, and we really cater to the really young children because it's such a beautiful, clean place that doesn't overwhelm them as some patches do. We've gotten many compliments over the years, and we continue to receive them, and it makes us feel very proud. In the past, we've been approached by numerous engaged couples wanting to get married at our place, and we politely declined each of these, but as the demand continued to increase, it did get our attention. I want everybody to know we've been very diligent in keeping the sense of farm, quiet, rural valley intact. We turned down numerous requests to hunt on our property because we want to live in harmony with Mother Nature. And that includes maintaining harmonious relationships with all of our neighbors who live in this area for the same reason we do, because we love to be outside of suburbia. We love to share the beauty of our farm, so we decided to embrace the demand and pursue letting couples get married there. And because we like this rural countryside, we are very conscientious of our neighbors' concerns. In fact, we met with all of them prior to a request for adding weddings to get their feedback, and we were met with their excitement for our opportunity. We feel we put our neighbors' desires to stay rural in everything we do. We were asked to donate the use of our property for a wounded warrior wedding at our farm, and I was so concerned about the music and noise that I drove to every neighbor's house and turned the car off to listen, and I couldn't hear it. I was very concerned about that because as a neighbor, and I live very close to this venue, I don't want to hear it. So our DJ that we use is very conscientious about keeping the music at a level that will not disturb neighbors. We are in control of the level, not the bride and the groom and not the DJ. And we have a policy currently of no live bands after 9 p.m. Am I done?
You are. Thank you very much for speaking. As we get closer to the bill, if we have questions, we'll call you back up. Next speaker.
Dan Pressman.
Good evening. My name is Dan Pressman. Kathy Walsh, who spoke earlier, is my wife. As a pumpkin patch, we have no problem with Valley Farms. And doing the things they've been doing for 14 years, it looks like it's beautiful. We haven't been there. We haven't been there for that time, so we don't have any objections to the way they've been running, other than the weddings they've been running recently. For us, the basic issues are noise and whether the proposed use of this facility is appropriate for the area, only 550 feet from our property. A quick Google search finds a number of wedding venues nearby. In fact, there's a rural wedding venue in Wright City, 10 miles from Valley Farms, and another was just approved that's only 4 miles from Valley Farms. Therefore, I question whether this wedding venue truly is a public necessity as defined in Bill 4494. The other issue is fairness. Mr. Barrio has stated that he needs to make a return on his recent investment. However, his investment was made prior to securing the appropriate permits, so I don't think this is a valid argument. Even if we are the only residents affected by the noise, I'm having trouble understanding why the financial gain of Valley Farms should come at our expense. It's not just my property value that I'm worried about. It's how the noise will affect our lives and our enjoyment of our property. We welcome a visit by the council members to view the property and to possibly mediate between the Barrios and ourselves and to understand the problem. I have a few specific issues I'd just like to mention quickly. One, we'd like clarification on the maximum number of persons per event, wedding or otherwise, independent of the fire and building regulations. Are events truly indoors in a barn that is 30 to 40% open? It's very open, or can be. Rather than 30 large events per year, we're requesting a limit of 10. And we'd also like clarification on the size and frequency of large midweek events. The proposed midnight ending time is late, particularly on Sundays. Sixth, the fences and boundary markings are needed to prevent guests from wandering onto other parcels and trespassing in the creek area. And finally, how are these restrictions to be policed and enforced? It was an issue that came up in the Planning Council, and I never really got a great answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good day.
Next speaker on this issue.
Edward Barrio.
Before we start the timer, just a quick question. Will I also be called up when my permit?
Depends on if the council members have questions. If they do, then you'll be called up.
Okay.
If you want to, I will call you up.
I have
Okay.
a feeling Mr. Cronin will call you up.
Okay, so real quickly, just for music this is everything that we've done to please all of the neighbors. Music management, last year we met with a professional DJ service. They came out and discussed the differences between music in a tent, music in a building. They discussed the direction of speakers and how you can minimize or eliminate the music going long distances. That's one of the main reasons we decided to build a building, other than for agricultural use, which, by the way, 300 days a year, this will be used for agricultural use. We anticipate the music to stop around 10 p.m. The closing time is 12. I got to get everything cleaned up and everybody out. I really can't tell you, if it's 10:01 and the bride's song is still on. That's why I don't want to say that we promise we'll have music off by 10. But I need time to clean up, so music will be off long before midnight. Golf courses there's a golf course, and that's about as close to these folks' house as my venue is. The golf course has unlimited events. They can have live music, and they're not limited to how many times a year they can do it. The golf club, the Incline Village clubhouse is also about the same distance, about 1,900 feet away. They're allowed to hold weddings and receptions, unlimited, as many as they want per year. They're allowed to have live bands, and they're allowed to stay open till 1 o'clock and play music till 1 o'clock in the morning. Also, there's a band that is a band member that lives 2 houses away from our farm. He's practicing all the time. I think that the gentleman might be hearing other music and other sound, and it's not us. We made sure we kept the music very low. There's also what we call the party house up on the hill. They are constantly having parties, bonfires, loud music. So I just want to make sure that, it is a good possibility that they didn't hear it from our location. Last meeting, there was a question about alcohol. The Incline Village wedding receptions, they're allowed to bring in all the amount of beer and booze, any kind of alcohol they want. We limit ours to beer and wine only. You cannot bring in your own. We have security in the area, in the parking lots, to make sure nobody's drinking illegally or in the wrong areas. And every single bartender we use is a certified bartender, and that's the only people that can serve alcohol. Business case, I cannot survive on 10 weddings a year. I just can't do it. I'd be losing money. 100 people was discussed last time. 4% of the wedding requests are for less than 100 people. 96 is more than that. Statistically, you book about 2% of the weddings that people come to look at you. You book about 2%. If you limit it to 100, which there's no reason why planning and zoning and the building department say that that's not required, then I would statistically never book a wedding. I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much.
Good timing.
New subject, we have Bill 4495. We have 1 in support and 3 against. The first one in support is Brad Schreiber.
Good evening and greetings from Texas. I'm Brad Schreiber. I'm the president of Fall Creek Weddings. We're based in Houston. First question that we get is, especially those who are opposed, is why here? Our facility is, I believe you all have renderings of the architecturals and all, very high-end, ground-up builds. I spent a few years here prior to my career. Really like the St. Louis area, specifically St. Charles County. We spent a lot of time looking for property, and the location that we picked is just perfect for it. One of the things I'll offer up is the economic contributions that our facility would make. There will be between $2.5 and $3+ million worth of taxable income between facility rental, catering, other services. So there will be an economic and employment infusion here because of the facility. We attract approximately 25,000, 30,000 guests a year, either attending venues or coming out to look at venues. I heard that there are other venues in this area. We currently have one under construction outside of Austin called Dripping Springs. There are a dozen of these rustic-style venues. It's hot. It's a hot concept. The competition is actually positive rather than negative. For everyone who comes out to look at our venue, they will look at others and vice versa. So we will attract others as well, and assist. You know, not every facility is everybody's cup of tea. So not only will they maybe go visit the winery, certainly if not for a wedding, they will make use of the winery for their extracurricular activities before, after, during events. Having been in the business for 13 years, we have another company with other facilities located, 3 out of the 4 located very, very close to neighborhoods. We're very conscious of sound, traffic, alcohol consumption, all of those things. In serving over 1 million people, we have not had one single incident alcohol-related. We're very proud of that. Question of property values comes up as well. It has in the past at other locations we've proposed. And in fact, property values have followed the natural course of the increases over the years. So we've seen they've actually increased, not because of us, but certainly had not decreased because of us, and we have studies to show that. We've been asked to do that in the past. We're prepared to do that again. We're really good community partners. We'll offer our facility.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Gordon Coates.
Good evening. My name is Gordon Coates. First off, I want to make a comment that I agree with the St. Charles County Planning and Zoning Commission's vote to deny this conditional use request. I believe that it was the right decision based on several concerns that I have, which are clustering of venues, evening noise levels, traffic concerns, and future home resale values. Let me explain. Clustering of venues. The location is directly across the road from Noble Ice Vineyard and Winery, which is an existing wedding event venue. If this CUP was for agricultural tourism, which it is not, it should not be allowed according to that code, but in my mind, there is no difference in this case. Evening noise level. My home is located about 800 to 900 feet away from Noble Ice Vineyard and Winery, and 9 out of 10 times I can hear the reception music inside my house with the windows closed, TV, and air conditioning on. The proposed venue is about 500 to 600 feet away from my home. Even with it being indoors, the windows will be opened in the spring and fall, and I will hear the music. The firm end time is stated in the application at midnight, but in my experience, this will lack over time. Considering an estimated 150 events per year, quite a few more than the 30 that the other's been proposed, minimum tells me that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday will have loud music until midnight. Traffic concerns. If Noble Ice and Fall Creek both have weddings on the same night and let out at the same time, there'll be about 200 to 300 cars on Highway 94 near midnight, leaving these venues alone. Not to mention the intersection Highway 94 and Hemsath Road has issues with sight distances. Future home resale value. I'm very concerned that if I have to sell my house because of the events and noise levels, that I will not get fair market value, as I believe there are too many people, not too many people, who want to buy a home right next to 2 wedding venues. So after hearing all these arguments of this conditional use permit, I hope the council understands my concerns. Think about how you might feel if this was next to your home and vote to deny this request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Christine Camato.
Hi, I'm speaking against this conditional use permit. I'm saying this as a resident of the Defiance and Augusta areas, but also I am the secretary of the Defiance Merchants Association, and as you may know, I represent St. Charles County on the Tourism Commission. And currently, while everyone wants to tell you there's this big boom in everyone wants an outdoor wedding, currently in our small area of District Number 2, we have over 11 wedding venues, and they have approximately 325 weddings per year. This application is proposing another 150 events. Just as a case in point, one of the local wedding venues over the winter started giving a free wedding venue in January, February, and March to anyone who would book a wedding there. They're one of the top-notch places where you would have a wedding. So I am not in favor of someone building a brand-new, stand-alone wedding event building only 40 feet away from one of our existing event spaces when we have such a saturation in the market. That's my personal opinion, and I hope you will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
And against is Robert Nolan.
Hello, I'm Robert Nolan. My wife and I own Nobilized Vineyards, and I want to thank the previous two folks who talked because they stole most of what I wrote here. So I won't have to burden you with too much information. But basically, what we're looking at is a situation where this new venue is going to come in and expect to do, in order, according to Mr. Schreiber, in order to make revenue, they need to do 150 events a year. They're going to do this on a parcel of ground that's 13.7 acres. Now, contrast that to us right next door, 40 feet away. Literally, we share 1,500 feet of road frontage with them. And we do about 30 events a year of 100 people or more on 84 acres. Now, I think when you look at the rural area, this very rural area, perhaps the most rural area in St. Charles County, and you talk about putting two venues directly next to each other, you're creating many hardships. Gordon mentioned it about he's on the other side of this venue. I'm on the east side of this venue. It's going to create a lot of disturbance. We create a little bit of disturbance. We try and minimize that as much as possible. But adding 150 venues or events a year on this venue, with all the traffic that's going to go on to Hemsath Road, which is a very rural, small, two-lane road, their current plan shows them having an ingress and egress that is going to conflict with a major line of sight issue from a safety standpoint. And I think that the Gordon mentioned, on Saturday nights when both facilities have weddings, it's going to be crazy between about 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, people trying to get out of this area. So we believe this is a very bad idea. If you want to build tourism, you build it around the winery business, and which is what we've tried to do. We are a full winery. We happen to also do weddings. But quite frankly, in order to be viable in this market, you've got to do more than just one thing. You've got to do weddings as well as winery. Otherwise, the wineries are not going to exist. So to approve an out-of-town company coming in here, buying a small parcel of land, building a big building, which 6,600 square foot is a large building for this area. They say they're only going to limit it to 280 people, but that building will hold a heck of a lot more than 280 people. Doing all that and putting them in competition right next door to an existing facility that offers weddings makes very little sense, I think, for St. Charles County. It's also unprecedented. I don't think you've ever approved something like this, whether it was two wineries going next to each other or two wedding venues going next to each other.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
We appreciate
I'm against it, by the way, in case you.
Thank you for that point of clarification.
We have Bill 4487. The first speaker is David Vintage.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank all of the Blue Star families, the Gold Star families, the veterans, the patriots that have come out to support us. And I'd like to thank you for tabling Bill 4487, naming the new park in order to consider our request for a name. I'd like to introduce you to our son, Philip Vintage. If you'll look into his eyes, you'll see the soul of a St. Charles County American hero. At age 18, Philip raised his right hand and pledged his life to defend the United States of America. At age 19, with his last breath, Philip kept that promise. Philip was not even old enough to legally enjoy a beer watching a Cardinals game. Tonight, I'm presenting you two petitions. One collected online has over 2,700 Patriot signatures that include approximately 600 St. Charles County residents. A second paper petition was circulated only in St. Charles County with approximately 1,700 signatures. That makes 2,300 signatures of the people you were elected to serve. Some of the notable signatures included are Governor Eric Greitens, St. Charles County State Senator Bob Onder, St. Charles County State Representative Nick Schreiber, and several others in Missouri government. They also include many Gold Star family members, including Jim and Sue Jacobs, Gold Star parents of Zach Fisher, a hero buried in a small cemetery across the road from Francis Howell High School. Jim is the vice president of the Missouri Military Memorial Foundation. St. Charles County Gold Star residents Mike and Mia Kisselhoff, the Gold Star parents of Dennis Kisselhoff, Cheyenne Jelena, the adult Gold Star child of Mark Jelena, and many, many other Gold Star family members, along with scores of veterans. It is our desire that this park honor all of St. Charles County's fallen heroes. We ask that a memorial be placed in the park with all of their names. To those that would say this park should have a more generic name, I ask, how does a generic name do more to invoke the memory of all of our heroes than a namesake that humanizes all of their sacrifices? And quite frankly, if our family had not stepped forward and intervened, this park would be honoring a creek instead of our county's heroic loved ones. Council members, these signatures give you a clear mandate to name the park Lance Corporal Philip Vintage Park. Please do the right thing and remember all of our heroic fallen by giving St. Charles County Lance Corporal Philip Vintage Park. Thank you.
Krista Martell.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a quote person, so, and though our arms are empty, our hearts know what to do. Every beat of my heart says, I remember you. PFC Lucas Bragg, PFC Andrew Hopsinger, Sergeant Dennis Kisselhoff, Corporal Donald Marler, Lance Corporal Matthew Pathenis, PFC Michael Patton, Staff Sergeant Bradley Skelton, Corporal Riley Baker, Lance Corporal Drew Weaver, Specialist Jeffrey White, Sergeant Matthew Strotter, Seaman John Gomez, Captain Travis Petranquin, Sergeant Zachary Fisher, Corporal Russ Mikowski, and Lance Corporal Philip Vintage. To you, those are names that you may or may not have meaning or faces for. To the students in my classroom at Francis Howell High School, across the street from Sergeant Fisher's grave, they are the faces and names of our fallen that hang on my walls. To me, they are representative of the bigger picture. All who have given their lives, the ultimate sacrifice for the ideals of our founding fathers and their families. In today's fast-paced, social media-driven world, without a name and a face, the reality of our Gold Star families and the sacrifices that they have made and have given often go unnoticed. For them, as I have learned from witnessing their grief and the positive things that they have chosen to do with their grief, as the Vintages have done and continue to do, all the Gold Star family wants is for their family member to be remembered. To the Vintages, it isn't just about naming a park after their son, who was killed in action. It is about all our fallen, no matter what the conflict, their families, and most importantly, their children. In the end, there is the belief by Maya Angelou that history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not live again. As a teacher, I don't want to see this particular era be lived again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie Vintage.
First, I would like to thank all of you for allowing me to address this council today. Not only is that my son, but this is my son. This is Lance Corporal Philip Vintage. I need his name said. I need him remembered. Every morning when I get up in the morning, I ask Phil, what can I do to honor you and to honor your fallen brothers? And that's what I try to do every day. This morning I attended a funeral for a young man that was killed in St. Charles County. He has 2 children. He was only 24, and he leaves behind a 22-year-old widow. I was able to introduce myself to them. I was able to tell her and her family that I will never forget him, that I will do everything possible to honor him, remember him, speak his name, and that is where I am very, very proud of a nonprofit organization that our family started. We call it Dream Rider Events. We honor all the children that have lost a loved one due to military service. It doesn't matter what the circumstances were. At the end of this month, we are taking 32 families, 80 children to Branson, Missouri, to give them 4 days of fun, to honor their fathers, to honor their mothers, to speak their names, to tell their stories. We want these children to have happy memories. Our nonprofit foundation is an all-volunteer foundation. No one on our staff collects a salary. They all do it because they love our military. They support our fallen. By naming this park Lance Corporal Philip Vineyards Park, it personalizes it. It brings a name to it. Nothing more would make me happy than when a family takes their children there to play, and a child said, "Why is this named Lance Corporal Philip Vineyards Park?" It can hopefully strike up a conversation that the parents have the opportunity to say, well, this was a young man that gave his life for us to play in this park. But not only that, they can say, we have so many members of our military supporting us, and this park reflects that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ella Matea.
Hello, my name is Ella Matea, and I'm going to tell you why this park should be named after Philip. First thing, if this park was named after a creek, kids would learn from it. But if this creek was named after Philip, they will learn that he fought for our freedom. Second, Philip was one of our heroes, but that one of heroes' parents started a great organization called O'Fallon's Fallen Heroes Dream Ride. That group helped kids whose parents have died in the war. They help bring smiles to children's faces when it was so tough to smile. Sometimes if it wasn't for Philip and his sacrifice, none of this good for all would ever have happened for these children. I'm not a child whose parents died in the war, but I am a child that does a little lemonade stand for my heroes, my soldiers, and I am a child that is proud to be American and is proud of all of our soldiers and Marines, and I am proud of our military that fights for me so I feel safe at night. But I also want to help the kids of those whose moms and dads that can't come home, who don't have a voice. And Vintage started the organization because of Philip, but has helped change the lives of so many children and has given hope and smiles. Even when the hard times come, good can come out of it. We can be proven this tonight for the children. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you.
Beth Bruning.
That's a hard one to follow. My name is Beth Bruning. I'm a Blue Star mom that was mentioned earlier. I'm taller. I can't believe that. And I just want to say the Blue Star moms are here in support of our Gold Star mom. For us as Blue Star moms, we're the mothers of active duty or veterans. My job with Blue Star moms is a blue to gold liaison. So in other words, when a active duty military star turns gold, we step in and kind of support the family. We're here today because we think that naming the park after Lance Corporal Philip Vintage is a great idea. For one thing, for us, when you first hear your child's name when they're small, it's such a great thing when they first say mom. For us as active duty military, we may not hear from our kids for a couple weeks or a couple days or maybe a couple months. And when you get that first phone call, Mom, I'm okay, it's really a great thing. I can't imagine getting the phone call, I'm not okay, or someone else coming to tell me that they're not okay. And for us to hear that name, Lance Corporal Philip Vintage, means he took that oath, he stood the line, he did what he needed to do, and we're here to support that. And there's nothing we'd like better than to see this park named after Philip rather than a creek. I stood out with Julie at the fireworks stand on the 4th of July for a couple hours and asked for signatures. Most people were ready to sign it. Wow, that's awesome. There was one man that approached me, and he said, why Philip? Why name this park after Philip? Why him? And the only thing I could think was, how many times Julie or Dave said to themselves, why Philip? Why him? Why Philip? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Bill 4493, and the first speaker is Steve Cohen.
Difficult spot in the order tonight after such an emotional and meaningful proposal, but I'm here to talk about easements and roadways. I represent Chandler Hill Holdings, which is the owner of the property immediately adjacent to the property on which the proposed private club is proposed. And we are opposed to this conditional use permit, and the primary reason we are opposed to this is because the only access way currently to this property is across an easement that goes across my client's property. It is approximately a 400-foot gravel road. It is narrow. It's 8 to 9 feet in width at certain places. It is a dam that holds in a lake or a pond on one side. On the other side, there's a deep ravine that goes down a number of feet. Plain and simple, this roadway is dangerous. And the applicant at the planning and zoning level has marched in a number of people that have said it's not. I've driven across this thing. It's no problem. But any logical, objective person would have to look at this and say, this potentially is a serious safety hazard, especially when you consider the purpose for which people will be traveling across this roadway, is to consume alcohol. And I think it's important to look at what the staff for the Planning and Zoning Committee did. They went out there, they observed on their own, and they actually wrote their own recommendations. Those recommendations actually talked about how dangerous this road was. They talked about how steep it was, they talked about how narrow it was, and they made specific recommendations that if this particular application is approved, that they're requesting that certain conditions be placed on it. And one of those conditions, as is included in the bill, is a fire apparatus access road. And I think that's really important, and I think it's really important to keep that in the bill. I imagine that there's going to be opposition to that. One other issue that I wanted to talk about is item, I believe it's paragraph 2.4 of this bill. And it's a bit confusing to me because this private club is apparently limited to 20 members. I was surprised at the planning and zoning level to hear for the first time that each member can invite as many of their friends or guests as they wanted to. So while there is a limit proposed in the actual bill in terms of the number of members that can attend at any one time, it does not limit the number of people that can attend at one time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In support, Kim Besserman.
Mr. and Mrs. Vintage, would you like to have your son's picture? Thank you.
Good evening, council people. My name is Kim Bushman. I'm a retired firefighter in St. Louis County and was a longtime member of Chandler Hill Wine Club. In 2012, 2013, there was a Chandler Hill sponsored event at the cabin, and I have an old fire truck, and no hose on the back, put some people in the back, and drove the fire truck several times over that road. I know that they have a paid engineer, and I think his measurements are somewhat shorter than a fireman's measurements, but and I don't want to disparage him, but that will hold a fire truck. It does. I drove over it several times. There's pretty good tonnage on the truck that I drove over. I don't see the fire department having a problem out there. So, but like I say, I was a member for several years out there. We had several events back there. Again, one of the events, they asked me to bring a fire truck out. We rode people back and forth. I, of course, didn't have anything to drink that evening, so it was a safe drive. But it is a fair, sized road back there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Against, Andy Cohen.
My name is Andy Cohen. I'm the current owner, operator of Chandler Hill Vineyards. I've been a member involved there for 9 years. Thank you for agreeing to hear and for serving. It says a lot about the Shillington and Gillentine family, the support that they have, and it's quite impressive. We are opposed to the CUP for safety and security reasons. We have had an incredible increase in vandalism and crime at the winery since the change of control occurred. We've had a number of vehicles that have been vandalized. We've had items that have been stolen. And frankly, we're concerned that having access through our property when we're closed will only increase it. We also have suffered disruption to two weddings that we held out there in June. Members of the party that were attending a Gillentine function actually rolled their windows down and turned their stereo up during a wedding ceremony. We believe for the purposes of disrupting the ceremony. So our encouragement to this bill is that you consider access to the cabin from Defiance Road and separating the two ventures that are in similar businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In support, Christine Camato.
Welcome back.
Hi. Thanks for having me back. I want to speak to you about this particular bill as the Secretary of the Defiance Merchants Association, of which I'm on. I'm also an owner of a tourism-related business called Historic Missouri Wine Country. And again, as you know, I represent the county on the Convention and Visitors Bureau in a tourism-related capacity. I'm in favor of this personally because as the community of Defiance has worked very hard over the past several years, and when I say the community, I mean all of the business owners that are involved. And we've tried to get more tourism to the area, and this unique wine education club is something different that would really bring people out there. The other reason I'm for it is, as you know, the county has entrusted all of that tourism money to the CVB to help us spur business within the agritourism district that fits the master plan. And this type of business really does fit that plan. Now, as to being an engineer and knowing the safety of that road, I couldn't tell you that. I can say I've personally been across it. I was never afraid, but I'm not an engineer and I couldn't speak to that. I just think that if you are wanting to bring tourism-related business out to that little area of District 2, we're spending the money for it, and here's a unique business offering something that's different. I think it's a good thing for the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Against, David Brameyer.
David?
My name is David Brameyer. I'm a traffic consulting engineer in the St. Louis area, and I have been for the last 42 some years. In front of you, I believe there's a report, and I was asked to look at the proposed access road, which is basically an 8-foot wide gravel travelway. In your report, it lists 11 items that I looked at the day that I was at the meeting, at the site, including the travelway, the travel width, side slopes, guardrail, lack of traffic signs. And in the report, I come to the conclusion that that 7, 8 foot, and some areas 9 foot road across the dam is dangerous for the use that's being proposed. And I list a lot of reasons. Now, one of the things that we did not address, and I am not a soils engineer, but on this rock road, when wet conditions are present, and we've had a lot at the springs, gentlemen testified that a large fire truck can cross that. Well, I'm not a fireman, but I do design pavements for heavy traffic, and they're not 6 inches of rock, they're 16 inches of concrete is what it takes for repeated traffic across a road like this to carry any kind of emergency vehicles. In the report, you will note that I agree that it doesn't meet your adopted fire code, which requires a 20-foot wide road. It's a one-way access. There's no way to pass a stalled vehicle in the event that there is a stall. There's no guardrails. The report goes on to state that we believe that it's dangerous for the particular use. Now, some people will say, well, employees go back there. Well, this is just like a construction site. We have employees that work in a construction site, but we like to keep the general public out of them. There's a lot of similarities here. So as a traffic engineer that's practiced highway safety in the last 40 years in the St. Louis market, we believe that this is a dangerous precedent to allow the public use of an easement of this size without meeting the fire codes for the emergency vehicles that may be needed there sometime. Thank you.
Thank you.
In support, last speaker, Drew Weber.
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. County Executive, esteemed staff. My name is Drew Weber, and I'm here on behalf of the Defiance Wine Company, speaking in favor of conditional use permit 1705. I don't think there's any question that the use is appropriate for the area. I mean, the speakers opposed haven't even said that. The staff recommended approval of this permit, and the Planning and Zoning Commission gave a unanimous recommendation of approval. All this talk about access roads, I mean, that's a site plan issue. We have to comply with the adopted fire codes, and I'm hesitant to mention building codes, but we have to comply with those, whether or not they're conditioned to the conditional use permit. So that's kind of a non-issue. The And this whole definition of fire apparatus access road that was in the traffic study, I mean, that applies to new construction. But, I mean, we're working that out with the county and with the Augusta Fire Department. The Augusta Fire Department has been out to the site, and the fire chief said, you know, we don't really see a problem with this. Make sure there's no trees blocking our access, but I mean, they didn't really see a problem with the road. And we have, I submitted this today, so it may not be in front of you, but we have petitions signed by, I think, over 100 people now. I have a hard copy here that I'd be happy to leave with you or the staff, Mr. Commissioner. All right. And then these arguments from Chandler Hill, I think, are a bit disingenuous. If you go to their website right now, under the corporate events page, they have a corporate brochure, and I have a printout of it that I'd also like to submit to the staff. And in this corporate brochure, it says, for a more intimate meeting space, we offer our 1820s vintage cabin on the west side of our property, complete with a boardroom and relaxation area and patio. Then there's a picture of this cabin there. So at one point, Chandler Hill did hold events on this property, and they apparently thought it was appropriate, that the access road was adequate for Chandler Hill's clients at some point in the past. And we think it was. It was then, and it was now. So we ask that you approve the conditional use permit, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Now we go to Bill 4496. We have two speakers, Gary Gerber.
How are you doing this evening? My name is Gary Gerber. I live in Meadowbrook Estates, which is the subdivision right adjacent to this property for this conditional use permit. We have some concerns with this property being changed from residential piece of property to a conditional use permit for a daycare. The number one reason we have a problem is obviously traffic. It's on the Highway Z, which is obviously growing and getting busier and busier every day. And the access to the drawing that we have for this is within 10 feet of our subdivision entrance onto Highway Z and directly across the street from Whisper Creek subdivision, which is several hundred homes. I've also talked to MoDOT about this access onto Highway Z, and they don't feel that the way the property currently lays and with the drawing that they would allow access onto Highway Z for this type of use. They would like to see at least 200 feet in between entrances, and the road, this property only has 185 feet of frontage. So even if they move the driveway to the opposite side and put it closer to Fieldstone Estates, there's still less than 200 feet that MoDOT would like to see. And they would also like to see some conditions on Highway Z, possibly no left or no right turns and things of that into the property. So with traffic being said, that's one of my concerns. The other concern we have is septic on the property. That's a 3-acre piece of property that's on a current septic system. And I don't know, currently I built a house and 3 acres on a septic system is, according to St. Charles County, I believe, barely enough for a septic system. And if you're going to put a daycare in there with 66 plus children and adults and stuff, I don't know if there's enough room for an adequate septic system there. The other question I have would be stormwater. If you're going to put a parking lot and a playground, some additions to this property, where's all this stormwater going to go? We live in an area where there is no curbs, sewers, or anything of that nature. So we have a concern of the stormwater. Doug Forbeck of the city of Wentzville, and I know this is not Wentzville, but Wentzville's all around it, has some concerns with this piece of property being a conditional use permit for a daycare. So with that being said, I'm opposed to this for this type of use in this zone. There's plenty of other places up and down Z that are already zoned commercial that would be, I think, a better spot for a daycare. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Bill Shea.
Hi, Bill.
I'm Bill Shea, and Gary took a lot of my, I said a lot of the same things I was going to say about the highway, but The one thing I wanted, a few things I wanted to point out that I looked into myself, but the speed limit itself along this part of the roadway is 50 miles an hour. A car moves 74 feet per second at 50 miles an hour. Now, I walked down to the far edge, the south side of his property, and it's on the downhill side. It's a blind hill. You cannot see cars coming over on the other side of the hill. It takes 3 seconds for the car to be seen to where the commercial exit from the property would go onto the highway. And out of that 3 seconds, it takes a quarter of a second to visually act upon your whatever you decide to do. So there would be, you look both ways, so it'd be half a second gone. You got 2.5 seconds to make up your mind what to do. This Whisper Creek subdivision, in addition to being a subdivision, a lot of the people cut through to go to there's 2 schools over on Highway N. This goes all the way through, and an awful lot of, big majority of the people cut through that subdivision in order to get to the schools. I talked to MoDOT. There are no plans to widen Z. There's no plans for a light. They said, we have no money. There's been no studies on traffic made. There have been no applications for commercial cut into Highway Z. And anyway, I don't want to see a child get hit and killed. But Highway Z, historically, the west side has always been residential. There's one church on our side. The east side, there's a commercial frontage all along the highway. And historically, this would be, I mean, the first commercial type of venture on the west side of the highway. Half mile down the road, Morgan School is being built. Has a capacity for 200 kids from birth to 12 years old. And the people last time at the Planning and Zoning Committee, they were minimizing the interferences with Highway Z, the traffic, basically. But I figured with 60 kids, you have basically 2 trips per kid. You have 2 interferences with Highway Z. You come off and you go on again. That would be 240 interferences to the highway, and during rush hour, primarily. But I think basically that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a lot of math, Bill.
We have Bill 4492 in support, Stephen Bates.
Thank you, council members, Mr. Executive. Basically, we're just doing a rezoning from A agricultural to RR. We just have a preliminary sketch of what we're looking at doing here. We may actually go up to 12 lots from 11. We're trying to figure that out. In the area, there are other 3-acre lots, 3-acre development. Stonebrook went in just in the last 2 years. There's even medium density residential very close. And that's basically it.
All right. Thank you very much.
And we have 2 against, Daniel Marshall.
Good evening. Dan Marischal. I'm a resident and a nearby adjoining property owner. And I had spoken at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. I know that we're kind of jumping the gun, but I mean, following the role, there's going to be a conditional use permit, plat approvals, and everything else. As some of the other fellows and some of the other applications have mentioned, my primary concern is with stormwater runoff for the site. It's currently an agricultural property. I think that, once clarification is given in terms of house sizes or if there's going to be any limitations on house sizes or detached structures, or if there's going to be any means for slowing down water before it's discharged into an existing creek system, I think that could shed some light on the actual development plan. As it sits right now, adjoining the property to the east is an existing agricultural property. My lot is on 4.2 acres, and basically the subject property on the north end has a higher elevation. The east and west side have a higher elevation, and it all sheet flows down into an existing creek, which flows through property that that my family owns, and then property that I own. That subject creek flows down damn near all the way to Lake St. Louis Boulevard, and beyond that, it flows behind multiple subdivisions, and basically the amount of stormwater that's going to be increased in this area is going to be increased based on planning and zoning numbers quoted, about 3,500 square foot home sizes, by about 5 to 7 million gallons. The improvement plan for the site, I know, is going to require a road being paved. Not even there yet, but I mean, immediate concerns, again, that need to be addressed. I'm sure they will be as part of the plat development in compliance with code. But again, first responder access is one concern that has been cited. I myself had owned a piece of property in St. Louis County, and that subject property ultimately needed to have a bridge installed, a MoDOT-rated bridge to access a creek. I think that, in general, I'm not necessarily opposed. You have to pick oppose or reject. At the time, right now, without knowing, future plans for the site, I am opposed until further clarification is given. With that being said, our property, again, is a family farm. It's been there since 1970, and we use it actively for hunting. So putting houses behind our area where we actually do hunt, it's not just us, it's friends, family, our farmers. That's a concern. It's an actively farmed farm. So, I mean, there's potential noise complaints from people doing what they need to do. We've got 146 acres, not me, but again, my family does. And then, with that being said, I think that just some additional clarifications and addressing some of the concerns with the water runoff. And most notably with a paved road, one of the roads will have to be about a half mile roughly, which adjoins my property. And as that paving is happening, adding an additional gutter system would be minimal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we have Gary Marischal.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Gary Marischal. Dan is my son. I'm here this evening representing Marischal Family Farms, which co-owns the land both to the west and south of the McMenemy land, for which a petition for rezoning will be introduced this evening as Bill number 4492. Although I have previously commented a number of times, my main concern relative to this rezoning request is that the section of our land, which primarily lies to the south of the McMenemy tract, is essentially downhill or downstream of that tract, as well as of our own farm and another to the east. We have a number of essentially dry creeks or ravines through the property. However, when there is heavy rain, they fill pretty quickly. One issue that the additional runoff is that the additional runoff from impermeable surfaces such as roadways, driveways, sidewalks, roofs, additional concrete for outbuildings and outbuilding roofs will inevitably flow to our property, and erosion is a large concern. Some type of detention process would alleviate much of our concern. In addition to the 11, and now I understand possibly 12 lots that have been indicated for this development, there's also a road leading from Hancock Road to the development. I'm only estimating, but it appears that road may be something very close to half mile in overall length, with approximately 220 yards bordering our land and an additional 170 bordering my son's home, which is directly south of our farm. The reason I mention this is that unless some type of drainage system is included in the design, that water will flow south or west. Either way, it will flow into our property and through our property. The amount flowing the amount already flowing is substantial, so anything additional, especially if there's much volume involved, I'm thinking is going to impact erosion on our ground. Because of the now downhill nature of the land, we are also concerned about the number of independent septic systems that will be required in the development, and would feel somewhat more relieved if there were a centralized system that could be more closely monitored for problems and that could be located, so a problem could be resolved and located more quickly in the event of a problem. One additional issue of concern relates to potential runoff related to the application of fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides by new homeowners that could eventually be concentrated on our property. Again, basically the flowage is all going to come through our land, so we're a bit concerned about that. My understanding is that an environmental impact assessment is typically made in these situations, and that would be much appreciated to hopefully resolve our concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last speaker, Arnie Dino.
Thank you, members of the County Council, Chairman, members of the County Council, Arnie A.C. Dinoff, Public Advocate and resident. This is the first meeting in a long time that you've actually taken time and not rushed the speakers and tried to adjourn the meeting under 30 minutes. I finally applaud you for doing that. Being an elected official and on the County Council is a serious commitment and a serious responsibility to take on. This is not a race to get to your couch in Darden Prairie or as fast as you possibly can. It's not a race to get to your car out in the parking lot and get away from the citizens that elected you to public office. It's about the over 400,000 great county residents that everybody here serves on a daily basis. It's not about the $16,750 salary that you get on an annual basis. With little debate here and almost no discussion or reasons to residents why you vote for bills or why you vote against them. It's done down at the local bar right down here on Main Street. It shouldn't be about the $750 per meeting that you as county council members get and leaving in record times while leaving residents in the dust and reasons why you voted or supported one measure over the other. It shouldn't be about the lifetime pension that most of you on the county council get and we pay for as taxpayers. It shouldn't be about the $25,000 per family of each council member that we pay health insurance benefits for on an annual basis, or the 2 full-time staff members to my left, or your expense accounts, or your national trips to the National League of Counties and other associations across our great nation. It's about serving 400,000 county residents. You are mandated to listen to the residents that pay your salary and the county bills. Now, last meeting, you decided to go in closed session, hide away from the public. 2 sunshine violations were created. The first one was the closed session, and you need to train a corporal elevated to captain with a $65,000 pay raise as to how and what the law is and how to treat citizens alike. Chapter 610.022.3 was violated by Captain Hunt. And it reads, public governmental bodies holding a closed meeting shall close only an existing portion of the meeting facility necessary to house the members of the public governmental body in closed session, allowing members of the public to remain to attend any subsequent open session held by the public governmental body following the closed session. Captain Hunt has no right to order me to leave the building or any other citizen in front of the staff members or other police officers that know the law. It was brought to his attention. He ignored it. A complaint has been filed with the Attorney General's office. They are currently investigating this complaint. I made an information request for the decisions that you made in closed session, the votes by individual, and your unapproved minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Dinoff.
It still has not been
Is there any other
addressed.
speakers
Thank
that we
you.
have for this evening?
That is it.
You mean there's someone in this room who didn't speak during public comments? You had the opportunity. I'm just kidding you. All right, so that wraps up public comments. We move on to oral report from the county executive.
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
God love you. That brings us to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. That gives us to Resolution 1706.
Resolution 1706, resolution approving a tax and disclosure compliance procedure for St. Charles County, Missouri.
Any discussions on this issue? Seeing none?
Resolution approving a tax and disclosure compliance procedure for St. Charles County, Missouri. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Resolution 1706 is approved. We're on to bills for final passage. We start with Bill 4488.
Bill number 4488, an ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of special obligation bonds, Public Safety Project Series 2017 of St. Charles County, Missouri, and approving certain documents and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith.
I would entertain a motion.
Oh. Motion for substitution?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to amend Bill number 4488 and replace it with substitute Bill 4488.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this bill?
Other than tell Bob and Joy to get us a really good deal at this sale. Okay? Okay?
Any other discussion on
Mr.
this bill?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Bob would answer any questions you might have, but I will tell you that we got a really good rate on this. He was very excited about it, and we'll share those details with you later.
Thank you, Bob.
Good.
With that being said, I would ask all those who are in favor of adopting substitute Bill 4488.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carol, would you read the substitute bill, please? Call the roll.
Substitute Bill number 4488, an ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of special obligation bonds, Public Safety Project Series 2017 of St. Charles County, Missouri, and approving certain documents and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith. Councilmember Brazel.
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond.
Yes.
Councilmember Elam.
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander.
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer.
Yes.
Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin.
Yes.
Bill number 4488 passes. We move on to Bill 4489.
Bill number 4489, an ordinance authorizing St. Charles County, Missouri, SCCMO to vacate and release the stormwater maintenance facility easements within Lot 2 and Lot 5 of the estates at Emerald Place and authorizing the execution of documentation deemed necessary thereto.
Any discussion on Bill 4489? Seeing none?
An ordinance authorizing St. Charles County, Missouri, SCCMO to vacate and release the stormwater maintenance facility easements within Lot 2 and Lot 5 of the estates at Emerald Place and authorizing the execution of documentation deemed necessary thereto. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Bill number 4489 passes. We move on to Bill 4490.
Bill number 4490, an ordinance amending the 2017 budget adopted as ordinance 16-104 by making a supplemental appropriation to the Road and Bridge Fund budget in the amount of $1,125,000 for the purpose of reimbursing consultants and contractors for construction and design costs.
Any questions or discussion on 4490? Seeing none?
An ordinance amending the 2017 budget adopted as ordinance 16-104 by making a supplemental appropriation to the Road and Bridge Fund budget in the amount of $1,125,000 for the purpose of reimbursing consultants and contractors for construction and design cost. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Bill number 4490 is approved. We move on to Bill 4491.
Bill number 4491, an ordinance amending ordinance 93-116, section 120.210 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSC CMO relating to the meetings of the Board of Equalization.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none?
An ordinance amending ordinance 93-116, section 120.210 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSC CMO relating to the meetings of the Board of Equalization. Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes. Bill 4491 is approved. That concludes bills for final passage. We move on to bills for introduction, starting with Bill 4492.
Bill number 4492, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Cronin. An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District as per application RZ 17-06.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cronin.
I've spoken to some of the neighbors other than the Marechal's, and 3-acre subdivisions are pretty common as part of the county. By going to 3-acre subdivision, we increase the lots from the currently allowed 8 to 13. That allows the developer to pave the streets and make it for a lot nicer development. I hear the Marichel's concerns primarily about stormwater runoff, but there are regulations in county for that. And I've actually looked at the site and talked to someone who's pretty good knowledge of the site, and I don't think there's a lot of concern there. However, I will be happy to listen to the Marichel's about this. But I think the staff did a very good job in the recommendations for this, so if you want to read the staff report, it's a good transition between industrial and agricultural and high-density subdivisions, and that's what the staff has said about this.
Any other questions or comments on this bill? Seeing none, we'll move on to 4493.
Bill number 4493, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel. An ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 17-05 for a private club for wine education and wine experience to John J. Shillington Jr. and Jacqueline R. Shillington, property owners, and Defiance Wine Company LLC applicant.
Any questions or comments on 4493? Mr. Brazel.
I have some questions. Who is on the opposing side? Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
I'm trying to understand this. I mean, they're on 54 acres, and that the family that was once part of the winery, it was their family farm, and so your main objective is the road?
I mean, we're opposed to it for numerous reasons, but the road is by far the primary reason. There is the ability for them to get their own access. They're choosing not to, obviously, because it's going to cost money.
But that easement issue is not for us to determine. That's a whole other matter. So the access, if you're calling it an easement, or whether or not it's their easement or your easement, but my question is you're claiming, because I read the planning and zoning notes, and I talked to Mr. Klinghammer, he was at the planning and zoning meeting, and your biggest concern is the safety of the road. And but what I don't understand is in those notes, a lot of your employees park back there, correct?
Some of the employees park back there on the weekends, it's my understanding. The employees are trained to be extremely careful. They are prohibited from drinking on the premises. And we can control them to a much larger extent than we can control 50 potential private club members and God knows how many other guests they happen to invite that have never been on the property before, and that come and go at all times during the day and night.
Well, I don't know about that. It seems like it's I don't know, but the other thing is I did talk to Joe Struckoff today, the fire marshal, and he called me, and he did say that he met with you guys, and he finds the road completely safe. He also said that if we were going to mandate anybody to be 20 feet wide, then you should be responsible for it because your shed back there has hazardous materials back there, which is gasoline and sprays. So he made that point to me. So he said, if that's going to be an arguing point, then we should make them make it 20 feet wide because you guys store hazardous materials back there. And that's what he told me. So I just think that this road thing is just a smokescreen, actually. So, I mean, I don't find every neighbor we've talked to, no one's opposed to it. The Gillentines have been involved in the winery industry in our area for years, and they've never had a problem. They've been good community leaders and involved with the DMA and everything. So, as a council member, I'm totally in favor of it.
Mr. Klinghammer.
One of the things that you mentioned a little while ago was that it's going to be limited to 20 members, but they could have unlimited number of people that came to an event there. I want to make sure that the council understands that one of the conditions that was approved by planning and zoning was that there's a limit on the number of guests at any one time. And if I remember correctly, that limits 50, that's 20. 20 people is the maximum that's going to be there at any given time. So your statement was a little bit on the misleading side when you said that we would have unlimited guests.
Can I clarify? I just wanted to point out the language of the bill itself. So for the first time,
The language of the bill says one thing, and then we put additional conditions on it.
I heard for the first time at the planning and zoning meeting that even though this is a private club, that any of the members can bring any guests that they want. Now, I understand that the recommendation of P&Z, and I believe the language of the bill, is that the maximum number of members that can attend any event is 20. And I just wanted to clarify so that there's no misunderstanding. I'm assuming that that's the maximum number of people that can attend an event, not just quote-unquote members.
All right.
Mr.
I think the key to all this for me is it's private. This is a private club, okay? And as it being a private club, those members should decide how they want this road. Now, I'll give you where I'm going with this. Near my district, or near my home, there are a ton of hunting clubs. Most of those hunting clubs, a lot of them don't even have roads. It's dirt paths you go down to, and if you're going to go duck hunting, you better be sure they're not too muddy. You're going to get your truck stuck, okay? And anybody that duck hunts know that most duck hunters might have a beer or two after they get done with a duck hunt, yes. So this is a private club, and I don't think we need to be enforcing what kind of roadway a private club has for 50 members. There's duck clubs that have more than 50 members, and they don't have roadways that are 20 foot wide, and that most of them have very little roadways. So to me, I don't see an issue with this. I think I agree with Mr. Brazel. I think the roadway issue is a smokescreen to stifle competition from other wine drinkers in the community, and I'm in favor of this.
Very well, Mr. Holloway.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that in previous argument there that this had already been used for this exact purpose previously. Am I correct in that?
Well, I personally don't have firsthand knowledge, but in speaking with my client, I believe that statement is a little bit misleading. It's my understanding that there were a few events that were there with a very limited number of people. That has completely terminated as of some time ago when the management changed. Previously, the manager of this facility was the applicant himself. But since that has changed over, those events do not take place anymore.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, sir. You may be seated. Move on to Bill 4494.
Bill number 4494, request by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Cronin. An ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 17-06 for a rural recreational activity and a facility for weddings, wedding receptions, and other events to Edward and Tammy Berry property owners.
Any questions or comments on this bill? Mr. Cronin.
I've been in communication with Mr. Barrow for a long time on this, and he's had a lot of cooperation from staff, and he has worked his tail off for having a very nice development down there. There's no other way of saying it. That being said, there are neighbors in the area. All the neighbors appear to be happy except for Mr. Pressman, Ms. Walsh, and I'm going to meet with them and Ed and try to work out the differences between this meeting and next meeting. We've already talked about doing this. So all in all, I'm confident that we can get this through and try to minimize any inconvenience to anyone. It's a beautiful place for a wedding, and there's not that many venues in my district for this. And I think it's very important also to understand that the wedding may happen outside, but the reception is going to be inside of a building, okay, with some pretty strict regulations for that. We will get a clarification on the number of people and probably have a little tweak or two to this bill between now and the next meeting. But I would thank Ms. Walsh and Ms. Pressman for keeping an email channel open to me, as well as Ed, and I feel confident we'll get this done. Okay.
Excellent. Mr. Hammond.
I'd like for the applicant to come forward or their representative. My question is, how do you plan to deal with the sewage?
That's a great question. I worked with Jared Agee, and based on the fact that it is not a year-round business and it's seasonal, we'll be handling that with portable restrooms.
I just want to caution you, though, if you plan on using existing septic system, you'll probably blow it out of the ground.
Yes,
So-
sir. And, and of course, I looked into the price of, putting septic systems in, and they said water will be coming down Dietrich Road pretty soon. When I was talking to the fire department, that would actually be great. But I wrote a letter of intent to Jared Adgie that said, if this business were to grow to be anything more than it is under these restrictions, that I would voluntarily put in different sewer systems. The sewer system that's on there now is a private sewer system, and that is not open to the guests.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you for your time.
May I provide just a little more information? I really, really want to make things work with all
Sure.
of our neighbors. And I just wanted to give a little more information of what we've done up to this point.
Fire away.
About 18 months ago, we started really taking this wedding thing seriously, looking into it. So since then, we've made a decision. Since we made the decision to go into the wedding business, we began planning process by talking to the neighbors closest to the farm to get their input. And is there any way, I sent a file in, is there any way we can get that up here?
That was distributed to the council, Ed.
Oh, okay. We talked with St. Charles County Police Officer Sergeant Kevin Jett with the Bureau of Field Operations, contacted our county council representative, Mr. Cronin, who set up a meeting with St. Charles Community Development, and we also talked to the Wentzville Fire Protection District. The police officer, we wanted to really, what are the laws on the noise curfews? We don't intend to be loud. We're not, based on what I've said earlier, beer and wine only, early last call, the price that we're charging, we do not allow anybody to bring in their own beverage. We have security in a parking lot. We are not marketing to the big party crowd. But he did say that they do not take any noise complaints seriously at all on weekends until midnight. We have far exceeded that by having our music turned off long before midnight. The fire department come out and looked at the place. He said very similar things. The truck has to be able to come in. They saw no problems with that. I'm in the process of putting all of the fire doors are in. We're working on the conduit, the electric conduit, et cetera. We're going to be 100% compliant there. I personally wrote letters to all vacant landowners within 500 feet of the property line and spoke with or wrote letters to all neighbors within 1,500 feet of the venue building. I detailed our intentions and invited all in that letter, and when I talked to them, I said exactly what we're doing, this is what we want to do, and I invited them all to an open house to tour our facility and ask any questions or express any concern. Neighbors invited friends, and we had over 30 people attend our open house. They all expressed support, and they all loved it. One other part-time resident and owner of the 50 acres that's to the southeast of us visited me at another time and asked several questions. At the end of the discussions, he supported our endeavor and also was one of the folks that wrote a letter of support. Thank you. With the help of everyone mentioned, we feel we have developed a business case that will ensure a harmonious existence and be an asset to the surrounding community. And just to try to help people feel a little more at ease, it's going to take us years to get up to 30 weddings. But more concerning, we're going to be, I listed all the locations, and you saw the chart that I sent in. There are 17 houses closer to my venue than the Pressmans, and have not got any complaints from them ever, and got support through the ones that I talked to and actually responded to me. I promise that I will still continue to try my best to make sure, if they can just give me a chance, to prove that we are not going to be the noise problem in the valley. And I very much look forward to meeting with the five of us, because it goes a lot deeper than this. We have had there's more than this, just this issue we've been experiencing, and it's been a very, very difficult 6 months. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I really hope we can work it out.
Very well.
I got a question.
Oh, sorry.
I had two questions. So you agree that your music will be shut off at 10 a.m.?
Not 10 a.m.
I'm sorry.
I do not want to make that.
No, I'm sorry.
That is in my rules and regulations. And I can show them to you if you want me to. That's in my rules and regulations.
I'm just asking you. So, and then you say 30 weddings. You're limited. Are you limiting yourself to 30 weddings?
Those were what we did on our own. We limited to try to appease all of the neighbors.
Okay, I don't think that's fair, but that's your choice. I don't know why you would do that, but whatever.
He's made a very diligent an effort to try to get all of his neighbors, and a lot of them have had support or have talked to me. And that's something he worked out with his neighbors, and everybody says you're a good neighbor, so.
Thank you very much.
Not everybody, but most.
Well,
We're working on.
we will
we're
work
working
on
everybody.
that because I think we are neighbors. We need to be friends. We need to respect each other.
We're working on everybody.
Yes. And did you have another question, sir?
No, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir, we were clear. We were holding till 10 a.m.
I did want to mention that. I do not want to put that in as a restriction because there's going to be somebody there with an atomic clock at 10:01, and I'm not cutting the bride's song off at the end.
We understand. There's not a big cost for those breakfast weddings, so we're all good with that. All right, moving on to Bill 4495.
Bill number 4495, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 17-08 for a rural recreational activity and a facility for weddings, wedding reception, and other public assemblies to G. Richard Coates and Sharon K. Coates, Revocable Living Trust, property owners, and Fall Creek Weddings, LLC applicant.
Mr. Brazel.
Yes, on this particular application, the first gentleman who just followed on the pumpkin patch, just so I understands what's going on. Mr. Cronin was trying to work with Ed because he has a pumpkin patch. He's been trying to have weddings. He's been having weddings, and it interfered with the zoning laws and everything else. So he tried to work it out with him. And as you always hear, when government gets involved, there's always unintended consequences, and this is one of them. I was working with him to have him work with his constituent, but now what happened is we have applicants filing applications in the wine district, which is causing some problems as well. And later on, on 4495, I think it is we're changing, for conversation purposes, we're going to bump it up to 20-acre parcel size. That does not have anything to do with these three applicants, but it creates a problem in my district because of the fact that the wineries went through a lot of trouble to get what they have to grow grapes. They have to have 5 acres of grapes. They have to make wine, which some of them don't do that either, but they have to make wine. And also in the wine area, it's kind of convoluted because you're technically not supposed to be having weddings. So the ordinance needs to be tuned up a little bit. Now, if you remember, we went through this whole process years ago with the AT district, and what we're trying to do, the AT district was allowing the wineries to have it open, have lodging as well, but it was 40 acres. And we feel that the larger lots creates that buffer for neighbors and so forth. I don't think that the wine district wants to have wedding chapels like Little Vegas all over the place on small parcels of ground. I just don't think that's a good plan. And so we're trying to work through all this. Like I said, the ordinance below does not have any bearing on the other applicants, these CUPs. However, I do have concerns about introducing large venues on smaller parcels. 13 acres would be the smallest parcel of any winery or anything that I'm aware of. We don't have any of them on them smaller parcels with this large of a intended business. And I did have more phone calls on this one in opposition, actually none unsupported, just to the applicant himself. I did talk to him. I appreciate his efforts, but I don't know, and I'm not sure, and I'm not convinced that this is a good fit for the wine district, and for a lot of reasons. So that's where I stand on this particular application.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to Bill 4496.
Bill number 4496, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 17-09 for a preschool and/or daycare center to Leonard Kirkendall and Josie Kirkendall, property owners, and Tiketown Developmental Center, Incorporated applicant.
Any questions or comments on 4496?
I got a couple questions.
Mr. Brazel.
When I read the application, Mike or Robert, or whichever one of you guys here, didn't it say, it says in here that they're going to hook up the Winsville to the sewer, right? That's what it said in the, did I miss something? Because then the other gentleman was talking about a septic tank.
We wanted to alert people, we want to alert the applicant and others that as properties are developed, if those properties are within 200 feet of existing sewer, then under the building code, they're required to connect to that sewer line unless it's physically impossible to do so. So it's possible in this case they may need to connect to Winsville sewer. That's true.
Isn't the property right directly behind it Winsville, the city?
It's bordered on two sides by City of Winsville.
City of Winsville. So,
right.
Yeah, and so to me, it's going to have to be hooked up. And so I don't know if that was one concern. And the other concern was the traffic on Highway Z. But Z is becoming I just don't know. I think that, we went through this before with the soccer park. And I thought we lost a golden opportunity. And on this particular thing, you have a daycare that this ground will be commercial. It's a corner lot. I mean, let's face it, it's right on Highway Z, a state highway. So you kind of got to make up your mind. Okay, so do we let this go? We just say, you know what, this isn't a good use for property. But in 2 or 3 years, it could be a gas station. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, so what do you do? You try to have the best plan for now, or do you wait and get something worse? So I'm not so sure opposing this is a good idea, because you have a daycare with 66 kids and children. I mean, seriously? I mean, I don't see it as a problem. I don't, unless I'm missing something. Any one of you guys are more than welcome to call me. Call Don or Carol, get my cell number and call me and give me better reasons. But the traffic, and I don't think the sewage is going to be an issue. And I think those are the two things I heard.
Okay, I'd like to speak on that. I didn't speak initially, but if you would hear me, I would like to speak for opposite.
That's fine, sir. You can come up here. All right, you have an opportunity.
Thanks, Robert.
Okay. Thanks, Robert.
Sure.
That's the only thing I did read that.
So we've got multiple neighbors here. Only a couple people spoke, 2 subdivisions. If you've looked at the property, I don't know if you've looked at the property. So the comment of a gas station, if I could put a gas station right there, seems absolutely absurd. I mean, it is bordered by residential. The only thing commercial would be the fire department that's catty corner to that. It's a daycare center, so people drop their kids off and pick their kids up at peak rush hour time when traffic is flowing through there. A couple years back, there was a request by a previous owner to make it a used car lot, and it was denied specifically due to the fact that MoDOT, nobody was comfortable with adding another access point from commercial onto Highway Z that close. 1. 2, it's a daycare. It's going to pull the majority of its people, of its clients, customers from the neighborhood right across the way. It's a huge subdivision, right? So now you've got this intersection that's already there, and now you've got this additional commercial drive that you're going to put just 10 feet from Meadowfield and from Fieldstone Estates, which is where I live. My property backs directly. I mean, I am completely adjacent to this property. Excuse me. And now you're going to add. So now not only do you have traffic that's going to be going 50 miles an hour both ways. 1. 2, now you're going to have people that are going to try to come cross Highway Z and then cut left 10, 15, 20 feet. They're not even going to turn. They're just going to try to go diagonal across into this subdivision. So you're going to add that. I do hear that on the east side, according to the letter that was submitted to you by Wentzville, there is already a commercial property that's going on the east side of Highway Z right there. And that there's plans only to do a right-in only going northbound. You will not be able to make a left from there because they're concerned. It's already been looked at, and MoDOT's already concerned about the traffic in that area and the access to that road. I mean, I can stand up here all day and tell you about how many people in my subdivision alone, and we're only like 30 homes in our subdivision, who have either been rear-ended, have been near-missed, I know I've had to abort turns into my subdivision because people coming around the bend from Highway N aren't paying attention, and you look up in your rearview mirror and you're like, that guy's not going to get stopped, and so you keep going. You have to abort your turn. You add, especially during that peak time, you add that kind of traffic, extra traffic of all those cars trying to get in and out of that. On top of that, it's a residential house. How are you going to put 60 people in a single-family residence with just what they're calling a minor addition to the front of it? They're going to put a parking lot that fronts that road that is going to be, I'm literally going to have, based on the drawings that I saw, a dumpster within 40 feet of my master bedroom window. And the parking lot will come right up to basically our property line. I'm not the only one with concerns, and there are lots of people in this audience. I know only 2 people spoke. I'm the third, but I have serious concerns about you turning a single-family residence into a. How are you going to stuff 60 kids and staff into a single-family residence? I don't understand.
I think you made your point, Chairman.
Thanks.
I think we should have, since we allowed this gentleman to come up, I think the applicant should be able to come up and speak. Since,
Are you the applicant?
No, I'm not the applicant. I'm directly adjacent to the property downhill.
Mr. Chairman?
Who's the applicant? Is the applicant here?
Not here.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Cronin.
I would like to hear from Councilman Klinghammer as for a reason why the planning and zoning voted to deny this. And I also like to hear staff's comments on the letter that the city of Wentzville sent us with concerns about this development.
Yes, sir.
P&Z had the same concerns about traffic flows. I mean, that was the underlying issue that it didn't seem to make sense right there to have with the limited sightlines and the traffic being right there just didn't seem like a good place to be putting a commercial business.
Okay. Mr. Cronin, what was your other question? I'm sorry.
I'd like to, Wentzville's letter about this has a lot of stuff. For instance, they had a question, has MoDOT reviewed and approved the proposed full access for the site? And they've got a bunch of recommendations at Wentzville. It's a common type of letter that Wentzville sends out. So Robert, have you reviewed that letter from Wentzville, and what's your take on that? They've got some pretty good concerns about this, looks like.
Some of the concerns that Wentzville raised, one was this is my recollection. One was the sewer issue, and we've learned through this process that there's a sewer line basically right across the street from this. So what I would do is recommend that the applicant in this case speak with the city of Wentzville and then see if there's any requirements in terms of annexation. Now, in terms of the driveway, right now it's a narrow driveway that doesn't provide that 20-foot wide fire access apparatus road that we've mentioned before. And so really, as we've done with other daycares, they need to be widened. It's probably not the right location for it. I'd say that the driveway probably will need to be moved down at time of the site plan, moved down farther away from the Meadowbrook Lane, just to provide some distance, because right now they're literally 10 feet apart from each other.
Has MoDOT reviewed this at all?
We've sent this to MoDOT, and we haven't heard comments back from them. But what I would say is that in situations like this, where there's lots of small lots along the roadway, it's difficult to say no, that you can't have access, because if MoDOT says no, you can't have a driveway from your lot, you're basically taking that person's use of that lot. So I think in the end, there will be some form of access from Highway Z for this lot. Whether it's a right-in, right-out only, I'm not really sure. But I do believe that they'll always have access rights from Z.
And Wentzville mentioned that they wanted additional right-of-way dedication because this proposal for future roadway improvements to accommodate Z, is the applicant agreeing to dedicate additional easement?
They haven't communicated to us on that issue that I'm aware of, no.
Any other questions or comments? No. Sir, I think we've heard enough, to be perfectly honest with you. No one's spoken in favor of this, and the council doesn't have any more questions.
Reasons that everybody's speaking.
Can you send those to us later?
Yeah.
That'd be great. We speak in the 31st, we speak in. We're not voting this up or down tonight. We're just hearing the issue. So you're welcome to come back at our next meeting and speak. Let's move on to Bill 4497.
Bill number 4497, request by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 17-10 for a facility for weddings, wedding receptions, and other public assemblies, and a rural recreational activity to Michael Kahneman and Karen Kahneman, property owners.
Any questions or comments about 4497?
I got questions on this
Mr.
one.
Brazel.
Is the applicant here? One of you guys want to come up here, both of you, or whatever you want to do? Hey, guys.
Hello.
Do you guys plan on having your receptions inside or outside?
Inside.
Inside.
Inside, is that going to be part of the conditions?
I think we had agreed to 99 because we're not,
No, 99 people, but
Right.
but the music will be inside?
yes.
And then what about, are you going to still continue, are you going to grow, are you going to have agricultural use too? Are you still going to do the
Yes.
flowers and all that?
We hope to launch a CSA tomorrow for Augusta Shores.
I'm sorry, CSA?
Community-supported agriculture.
Thank you.
So we'll deliver fresh vegetables to neighbors.
Okay.
Is that part of your, is that part of, in the conditions?
No.
No.
Would you have a problem with it if it was part of the conditions where you maintain agricultural use?
Oh, no, we do
what-
have agriculture. We have chickens, we have 35 chickens, we have turkeys, we have beehives.
We started out to primarily be just a farm, but by the time we had realized you need to hire 4 full-time employees to maintain the property, and you have to pay payroll taxes and taxes, we had to look for other sources of income to make it sustainable.
No, I understand that, but are you still going to, you have that garden that's got
Oh,
the
yeah,
cedar fence
yeah.
around it, are you
Oh,
going
yeah.
to still keep doing all that? Okay,
Yeah.
so, but would you
Maybe
have a problem?
someday we'll even have grapes.
Would you have a problem having that part of a condition where you have it, you
No.
use it as an agricultural
I don't
use?
have a problem with that.
Okay, and then what time, as far as the music and so forth, would you have any problem putting any kind of limitations on that as for times? I mean, if you want to think about it, or, like, I'm
I mean,
saying,
it's kind of like the
have a
other,
problem with
I mean, I think, just like the other guy said, right, we don't want people there all night. I mean, if we turn the property over, we have to clean it up, get ready for the next day. Some nights we'll be sleeping there. You know, you'll probably tell people to wind down by 10 o'clock.
are you guys having a personal home on site?
Yes.
We're having it built, yes.
Yeah, okay. No, I mean, you've done a good job cleaning up. I go by there almost
Oh,
every
thank
day.
you.
So I live on Schleuspark, so you tore that old house down in the barn. It looks good. I just, we're just, again, this is another, see, that one of the problems is we got to work through this. I got to work through it with the council and everything, is what we don't want people doing is using this to slide in to a winery. So because the wineries put up their grapes, they got to do all this stuff, they got to make the wine, and the next thing you know, these wedding venues are popping up all over the place, and then they decide, well, we can't just stay in on just weddings, so we have to be open every Saturday and Sunday and have music during the day and sell liquor, but they didn't do anything to get there. And that's one of the problems that we got to figure out how to work this out. And, because this would be the first of its kind in that area when we do these smaller lots. You got 17 acres, and so it's a little bit larger than the last applicant, and we got no complaints on this one. Everyone's so much in favor, so.
Thank you.
It's,
Well, we tried to buy the 100 acres on either side, and nobody would sell them to us.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
But thank you.
Clingham.
Yes, you were with us at Planning and Zoning and endured that long meeting as well. And one of the things that we were trying to do on the fly was come up with some conditions that would require the party part of the event to be indoors. And I think that the staff is still working on putting together some conditions that are spelled out a little better than what we did when we were trying to draft it on the fly at the Planning and Zoning meeting. So it was my intention and the majority of the P&Z board that the ceremonies can be held outside, but the party part we want to be indoors, especially when there's adjacent property owners that can hear it. So I'm speaking for staff. I know they're going to be bringing forth a better worded conditions that kind of spell that out, and it's not just weddings, but it would also be class reunions and other things of that nature that are reception-like, so that we're not just going to talk about weddings, but it'll be other events as well. So we'll have that. Jennifer, I think your staff's working on that with the county counselor's office. Okay.
Is that on this bill particular, or the other one that we're going to reintroduce?
Both of them. So on this particular bill on 4497, there is not a condition similar to bill number 4494 and 4495 that specify the indoor nature. The indoor nature condition of those other two bills that is there does not, I don't think, capture the range of outdoor activities that both Planning and Zoning Commission and you all appear to be desiring to see indoors. So we're going to clean up the language of that condition, and it'll need to get added to this particular bill for this use.
For final passage.
Okay, I'll get with you guys, and then I'll let you guys talk, we'll talk, make sure it's comfortable, and
Okay.
then,
Yep.
I just had same question as the other one. What do you plan? Have you talked with the staff about what you're going to do with your sewage?
We have a brand-new septic tank, but we're going to have to replace that and put in 2 new septic tanks, one for the barn and one for the house. And, you know, we're working through with, is it Sandy Mae? Sandy
Oh,
Mae.
okay.
And she's telling, I mean, she held us to the line the
Okay.
first one, and we'll do that again.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think that's a much better solution than porta potties and outhouses.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Just have to make sure it doesn't touch the vegetables.
You got it.
If they're working on this, on the CUP for the weddings and rural recreational areas, I guess a couple things I have questions. One of the comments I hear quite a bit is like, Joe, you're aware, you know these folks, and you know they're cleaning up the property, and it sounds like they're gonna do a great job. But what happens if this thing becomes successful and they sell it down the road, and the next person does whatever they wanna do? So I guess the questions that I would have is one thing is, can these conditional use permits be limited just strictly to the original applicant? Or are they transferable to the next owner of the property? And/or number 2 is there a sunset provision you can put on a conditional use permit so that, for instance, if you allow a venue like this or any other venue, and 5 years from now, the permit expires, okay? If there's a lot of problems, does the council have a plan, an option to come back and revisit that conditional use permit?
Yes, you can limit it to the current applicant. Secondly, you can put a time frame on it. As a part of that, you can have them come back 12 months before that terminates and show that they're adhering to the conditions. You have a great deal of flexibility in that regard.
Currently, like, for instance, these folks' conditional use permit, is this only applicable to them and not future owners?
You'd have to state that in this bill.
Okay.
I mean, that may be one of the other amendments in a substitute bill.
Any other questions or
No.
comments? All right, folks, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Move on to Bill 4498.
Bill number 4498, requested by Joe Brazel, sponsored by Joe Brazel. An ordinance amending section 405.080.c of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, to authorize certain meeting facilities as well as rural recreational activity as conditional uses in the A agricultural zoning districts on sites of not less than 20 acres.
Mr. Brazel, you want to lead us off again?
yeah, as I said before, this is going to have to be work in progress, because I don't even know if the wineries, you know, I'm not sure. I was thinking it should be 40 acres, but 20 acres, I don't know. I think we'll have to I'll talk to some of the neighbors and the winery people out there and see what our goals are. I mean, I know Joe's got stuff up in his rural area, and Mike might have some of these, but they're mostly going to be down in the wine district, so we got to figure out a way that's going to make most sense if we even want to do these. So that's kind of my position on this. I don't know. I think I need some input from the citizens on how we want to, what direction. And Mr. Cronin asked me if we could direct it, if we could section off the wine district, but I don't think we can do that because we never did a zoning district in the wine district. It's just it's a dotted line outline.
Any other questions? Mr. Cronin?
My concern with Mr. Brazel's bill is this. If I owned 100 acres of land and I intended to have weddings on 15 acres of it, okay, I would set up an LLC and have that ownership transferred to that 15 acres, just because I wouldn't want something to lose the entire farm if there was a liability issue down the road. I don't like the 20 acres at all because, for instance, I think the folks that were just up here made a pretty convincing case for having a nice wedding venue. The one in my district also. The other one I'm not decided on yet, but anyway, the long and short of it is, by your you're putting an extra hurdle, you're raising the bar for some folks that may not be able to do it. The folks that were just here wouldn't be able to do it. He said he tried to buy 100 acres on either side of him. He couldn't do so. So, you know, if we do this, then we're going to limit the opportunities for people like those folks to live the dream and have a business and out in the rural areas. And farming's hard enough now. I do so myself. You can't make it on small farms just by farming anymore. You've got to have other sources of income, and I think that's what these folks have realized.
Go ahead.
But the problem what you have in the wine district, Joe, is there'll be thousands of people out there on the weekends. It's much different than your district. How many wineries do you have in your district?
We keep them all down in your part of the world.
So the problem is, so the council understands, is it's not as simple as that, because you got to balance it with rural activities, you got to balance it with the wineries, and you got to balance it to make the people who live there, got to keep them happy, because I live on Schleusburg, and I understand what Mr. Coates is talking about. I hear Montel Winery blasting all night, but I lived there, they were there first, and so it is what it is, But now all these other venues coming in after the fact, you live in the country, so you have peace and quiet. So there's got to be a balance. And so the reason why 20 or 40 acres, the purpose of that is to make it more difficult. That's the whole purpose.
And I understand it, but here's the thing, and I've never agreed with this, and I know it's always been a position of the county, but we try to shoebox this whole county into one set of rules and regulations and codes, okay? And you cannot really do that well. Example, one of the other things tonight, 5 acres minimum lot size for residential development is important down in wine country because the soil doesn't work real well with septics. In my district, we don't have that issue, so we do 3 acres all the time. I think the laws work best when those laws are ideally suited for the location of the property. If you think this is best for your area, maybe it's so. In my area, I don't think it is. So I don't know why we can't have, for instance, I would support this if it was for your district, but I think it'd be detrimental to my district. Maybe it is beneficial to District 2, but not 1. So by having rules that try to uniformly cover the entire county, this county is very diverse. Even in, you can go from floodplains to the Ozark foothills in your district and everything in between. I think trying to shoebox it all in one set of rules is a fool's task, and I think even though we do that, I don't think it's the best way.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to Bill 4499.
Bill number 4499, requested by Amanda Brower, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance approving execution of cost apportionment agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission and the City of St. Peters for improvements on Route 364 in the area of Mid-River Mall Drive.
Any questions or comments on 4499? Seeing none, we'll move on to Bill 4500.
Bill number 4500, requested by Dave Todd, sponsored by Mike Elam. An ordinance amending Chapter 605 of the Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, related to licensed security officers and authorizing use of the County Law Enforcement Training Center firing range for the Eastern Missouri Police Academy.
Any questions or comments on this one? We're all good. We move on to 4501.
Bill number 4501, requested by Jeff Smith and David Todd, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the City of O'Fallon, Missouri, relating to use of the County Emergency Operations Center for dispatch and 911 services during the city's move to a new building.
Any questions or comments on 4501? Seeing none, we'll move on to 4502.
Bill number 4502, requested by Keith Hazelwood, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance amending Section 405.510 of the Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, and adding new Section 405.511 of the OSCCMO concerning the administrative review hearing process for conditional use permit application decisions.
Any questions or comments on 4502? Seeing none, that takes care of the bills for introduction. Move on to tabled bills.
Mr. Chairman, if you would indulge me just a moment, we have a Gold Star child that traveled quite a distance. I'm wondering if you could give her just a moment.
Can we get to that bill first, and then we can?
Yes, it's on the bill that you're just now talking about.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to remove Bill 4487 from the table.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bill number 4487 is back on the table. Would entertain another motion.
I make a motion for substitute bill 4487.
Second.
Motion made and second. Now we can start discussion. Sir, I would invite your Gold Star girl to come visit with us. Arkansas expression, sorry.
Hi, so I'm McKenna Atkins. Like Dave introduced me, I'm a Gold Star child, and my hero is my father, and he's Lance Corporal Bradley Lee Atkins. And I believe that the park should be named after Philip Vintage, because the Vintage family has just done so much for my family, and I think that it's because of Philip's legacy, and I think that his spirit through them has helped so many people, and I think that it's really nice that his spirit and legacy would go on through a park, say, and they've, as a family, they've just helped me create so many new memories, like with the Branson trip coming up at the end of this month. It's just, me and my mother, we look forward to it all year, and that's why I think that this park should be named after Philip and not, say, another Gold Star or another fallen military, because they've just done so much for this community and so much for the Gold Star community that I think that it'll just be just a wonderful addition to this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this one, Mr. Cronin?
I am fine with this, except I have one problem with it, and that's
Yes, sir.
it's on page 4, section 1.
Okay.
Okay? They mentioned in the substitute bill that there was a plaque in the Memorial Hall. There was a plaque in Memorial Hall listing those killed in World War II. Okay?
Yeah.
And then in the language on page 4, section 1, it says since World War II. I'd like to strike that since World War II. If there was a plaque in this county for folks in World War II, I'm not aware of it now, and I would say the vast part of the residents don't even know where Memorial Hall is. If we're going to do this park and we're going to name it and have this commission come up with a suitable name, I think we need to include the World War II folks that gave the ultimate sacrifice as well. And while that young lady was a Gold Star child from an earlier battle, there's still Gold Star children in this county from World War II. So I think excluding World War II killed in action from this consideration by this new board is a mistake. And there, but the grace of God, go my father and 4 uncles who served in World War II that aren't listed on any of those plaques because they all came back. But those who didn't deserve the same consideration as anyone else that was paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom in my book. Yeah.
Very good. Did someone else? I hear someone who want to speak?
Dave.
And speaking, coming from I'm a veteran, and I think there's been lots of recognition for World War II, World War I, and even the Korean War. And there's not been much for people that have died in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other conflicts since those. And to me, I see the park, and I would like to see it named Gold Family Park, and I would like to see a monument there. Pardon me. Recognizing all those veterans since the Korean War. With their names on it. Thank you.
Mr. Brazel, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I mean, what I would like to know is who's going to be on the committee, because I do think some of these folks are out here that are putting this forth such a great effort should be on the committee. So I think that, and if it is named after their son, if that's what the committee decides, that's great. But I think it should be more community. I think you guys are doing a great job with awareness and everything, and I think that every person that, I think Steve put a list together of the Persian Gulf people and what Dave's talking about, Iraq, and I think it should be more of the those wars, because like you said, World War II, my dad was a World War II vet. You know, they've got recognition, but I think they should do the same thing in that park. I think they should put everyone's name in there, and it could be Lance Corporal's park. It doesn't, but I think who's going to be on the committee? That's my. Do we know how we're going to do that?
I don't think those names have been picked yet.
Well, I would like to say that I would like to see somebody that's involved in it be on the committee.
Mr. Cronin.
I would like this committee to make the decision about what veterans that were killed in action are included or not included. I'm not specifically saying World War II. I'm not saying we should shut out World War I. I already mentioned Korea. Korea was in the early 50s, just 5-6 years. My dad served in both, okay? So I'm fine with doing the committee, but I'd like the committee to decide what veterans, where do you draw the line? Do you draw it in 1950 with Korea like this, or you draw it in 1943 for World War II? Or do you go back to 1917 or for World War I, or go back to the Revolution? I don't care, but I don't want to direct the committee that way. I want this committee who's consisting of veterans and people who that have more knowledge about this than I do to make that decision about how far back you go, okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify some of the facts that have come to light since I sent that email that you referenced earlier. We were not sure what was in Memorial Hall, so we sent some people out there to take some pictures. They have a plaque on the wall with the World War II, and they also have Korea and Vietnam. Okay, I agree with Mr. Cronin that we need to look at all of these. What the county has, aside from what the city has done, what the county has is this little statue right out here. People can see it as they walk out the door on the left. And next year is going to be the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, and what's on that statue is the names of all those who were killed in World War I. We plan, when we do the budget this year, to have that one of the items in the budget. We need to refurbish that statute. We need to, it's 100 years old. I think, this group gets together. That's one of the things they should look at. I mean, the county really hasn't done anything for 100 years in terms of recognizing these people at a public place. And Memorial Hall is great, but you gotta go to an event there to get in and see it. And nobody, even the city of St. Charles, or Joanne and I actually went by St. Peter's and O'Fallon and looked at what they had. Nobody actually has anything identifying these heroes from these recent conflicts in the Middle East. So for sure, I think anyway, we need to do something for them, and then let the veterans committees and so forth, let them decide how far back we need to go and what exactly we need to do. And tell us, what is it going to cost, too? That's obviously a consideration. So those are the facts.
Very well. Anyone else?
I would like to approach, if I could.
Can you do it quickly?
Very quickly.
Okay.
So I kind of understand where everybody is coming from, because each and every soldier is very important. McKenna's father was very important. Lance Corporal Vintage is very important. But I think honoring the legacy of Philip is very important, because as I can look and see, probably you all are parents, or most of you are. Can you imagine losing your child to an IED in another country when they're at war? And not being able to see your child's body because it is so badly damaged. Myself, I would bury my head in the sand. I would not come out of my house for days. Yet Julie gave up her career as a chef and said, I want to make a difference, not only in Gold Star families, but in veterans. 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Julie is highly trained, has taken classes, and she has saved many veterans' lives because of that. To see the bravery and the love that these people carry, not only for our veterans, past, present, and future, but our Gold Star families. So, if you can only imagine how awesome they are, can you imagine how awesome Philip was? And for a country who is falling apart, and we've lost our values and what means so much to us, to have children come in that park and play and say, Mommy, who is Philip Vintage 100 years from now? And to have the parents say he was a brave man who gave everything for this country, who, instilled morals and values into each and every one of us. We need to emulate Philip and what Philip did. And so I think that we need to go beyond that and say Philip Vintage Park needs to remember, the county electives were saying, all wars. And I can tell you that Julie has taken a dream and she's built it. She fundraised. They just got done building a home, and they planted 25 trees in the back of their yard to represent 25 Marines that passed away in her son's unit. So to say that she's going to turn her back on this park as soon as it's named Philip Vintage, that would be so mistaken. Okay. She's going to be the one that's going to be spearheading walls and memorials and paths and park benches, and she's going to make this a great thing for this community. Julie has spoken with our president and, has, above and beyond.
Yes, ma'am.
It's going to be good for this community.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
It. I would tell the family thank you very much for bringing this up, because I had no idea what Baltic Creek was, where it came from, or anything about that. So I don't think anybody on the council felt strongly about naming this Baltic Creek to begin with. So we appreciate bringing this issue up. Is there any other discussion at this point about this bill?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to entertain striking since World War II from page 4, section 1 of the substitute bill, based on the comments of myself and Mr. Elman.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay.
Can we recommend, or can we put in there that each council member gets appoint someone on the board? Just so each person, you get a VFW member, whoever you want?
Commissions are the prerogative of the county executive to appoint, and for you all to have your ability to confer on.
I'll listen to any suggestions that y'all would like to make.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right. So with no more discussion, I would ask all those in favor of adopting substitute bill 4487?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. 4487 is our current bill that is there, so we will talk about that on the 31st. Announcements and Sorry?
You've adopted a substitute.
We've adopted the substitute.
So you need to vote, you need to.
We don't vote right now. This is an introduction, isn't it?
No.
Oh, my bad. I thought we were introducing this bill because it was a substitute, because we pulled it off the table. It's been a long night. I didn't rush back to my couch in Darden Prairie tonight, though, so we got that working for me. Go ahead.
Substitute Bill number 4487, an ordinance setting up a committee to recommend a name for the parkland located between Kisker Road and Pittman Hill Road and other matters relating to the park. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
There we go. Bill 4487 is passed. So, announcements and miscellaneous. Anything for the good of the cause? Yes, sir.
In a lot of positions in government, I've had to send a lot of emails out, and I want to tell the Vintages that the one I sent you, Mr. Vintage, was the hardest one I ever wrote. Okay, and I understand 100% everything you told me. Okay, but I also want you to know that I don't feel comfortable, and I don't think a lot of members of this council don't feel comfortable making the final decision. That's why we wanted this board to do it. We want it to be consist of veterans and veterans organizations that know this issue better than us. So I wanted to mention that before we recessed. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I would say we need to fundraise to buy this young man a blue shirt and never walk into this chamber with a Black Hawk shirt on again. Otherwise, you will not be allowed to videotape in this chamber. That is completely made up and completely false, and you can wear what you want, but I just wanted to make that point. You were standing there, brother. You are just an easy target at this point. You're getting slap happy. I would move for a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion to adjourn is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned. Sorry, man. That's right.